Hello everyone, I'm Sriman Bidhan Bari from IEEE Site Student Branch University of Dhaka. Today's webinar, Crafting a Research from Hello World to Publication, is organized by IEEE Site Student Branch University of Dhaka and IEEE SBDU. It's a joint program of the Student Branch IEEE section. Today's event, our guest is Anindya. I personally know him from our university life when he was in our country, and the numerous idea competitions and robotics competitions he won. I personally know him because of that success, but currently he is in pursuing his PhD in University of Michigan. He also was a visiting researcher in Osaka University. He's kind of inspirational personal for the student branch. Now I'd like to invite him for today's talk. The floor is yours. Dada.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Bidhan, for the introduction. So I can now share my slides. Let me know if it's visible.
Yeah, it's visible.
Uh, okay. Okay. সো তুমি একটু চ্যাটটা মনিটর করো আর আমাকে জানাও যদি কোনো কোয়েশ্চেন মানে আসে। আমি লাস্টে ইন্ট্রোডিউস করবো সবগুলো কোয়েশ্চেনই। Okay, so we can probably start. So hello everyone. Thank you all for joining my talk, even like during the month of Ramadan. So I really appreciate that. So today's talk is going to be how to craft a research from Hello World to publication. And as introduced by Bidhan, I'm Onindo, and I'm a PhD student in University of Michigan. And so today I will try to concentrate on the very beginning of research. So some of the topic might seem silly to some people, like who are already a grown-up researcher. But I will try to grind all of those things, like how to start the journey and what challenges you might face, and what are the tips and tricks that will make you a more confident researcher. The growth is totally dependent on you, like how much you will grow as a researcher. But those tips and tricks, if you follow, so that will make you more confident in this journey. And thanks a lot, IEEE site and IEEE student branch, Dhaka University for hosting this talk. So moving on to the first slide is about like IEEE site. So I was a founding chair of IEEE site, student branch University of Dhaka. And people who don't know about site, I will highly encourage you to go to their website and have a like basic idea about their work. So from the broader perspective, they do most of their work on leveraging technology for sustainable development. And they are working with local communities. And as a student, you have the opportunity to ask for fundings to IEEE site. And if your project is approved by them, and if they think that okay, that will actually help people in the long journey, you might also get funded. So that's a great opportunity when you are doing your undergrad to reach out to them, submit your project proposal and get funded. Yeah, that's a like great opportunity. uh, Okay, so now about me and my research. So I did my undergrad from electrical and electronics engineering in University of Dhaka at 2018. And then at the end of 18 up to the middle of 2019, I was a visiting researcher at Osaka University. And then I joined University of Michigan in computer science and engineering department for doing my PhD at 2019. And I also got my master's at computer science and engineering from University of Michigan at 21. So from my research perspective, I used to do research on human activity recognition using wearable sensing and applied machine learning during my undergrad. And we have also worked on several application domain, like for example, detecting fall using wearable sensing and so on. And throughout my research days at Osaka, I was doing my research on vision based action understanding, like how we can actually utilize video data or like the skeleton data to understand different actions that people perform. And I also work there on eye tracking data that can actually help you when you are doing different kinds of tests like GRE or IELTS, how we can monitor your eye tracking and let you know how much confidence you were while taking those exams. So that was my research back in Osaka University. And in my PhD, I mostly do my work in the domain of human behavior modeling in the intersection of human computer interaction. And also currently I'm working on explainable AI that actually talks and deals on how we can use different kinds of AI techniques and understand their decision making, like whatever decision they're taking, like for example, monitoring the health of a patient or monitoring aggressive driving behavior in the intersection and so on. So these are about my research, and this slide is only for the people to know that, okay, today's talk is going to be generalized enough for any kind of domain, like if you want to pursue research in any kind of domain. But yeah, people who work on like machine learning, embedded system, and wearable sensing and so on, they might get additional insight from me throughout this talk. So this is the outline of today's talk. First, I will cover what are the basic guidelines for doing research, and then I will talk about how we can formulate research ideas to reach to that goal of doing research. And then mostly I will share some tips and tricks. So this is going to be a kind of informal talk. These tips and tricks will involve like how to read a paper or how to do properly literature review, and how we can start writing a paper when we have like solid findings in terms of results or in terms of contribution, and then how we can strengthen your profile if you want to apply for a job both in national and international domains, and also if you want to pursue your career for higher studies like doing masters or doing PhD and so on. And finally, this is a very important section for today. So utilize this opportunity to ask me anything regarding higher studies, regarding collaboration, regarding networking, and regarding like tech jobs. And mostly I will concentrate on people who are currently doing their undergrad at different years. So you can ask me anything based on your current position. Like if you have just started your undergrad or if you are at the end of the undergrad, what differences you might make that will actually help you in the long run to achieve your goals. So yeah, please utilize this opportunity to ask me anything or post these questions on the chat. After my talk, I will surely answer them. Yeah. Uh, so the first thing that comes when I do a talk on research is what are the like basic guidelines of like doing research. So the first thing is you need to develop a topic. You need to come up with some problems, and you need to have some understanding like how to proceed with that problem after you have come up with one. And then you need to do literature review, which is a very challenging task. So I will grind this topic one by one, but I'm just giving an overview of like how this research journey progresses for a researcher who has just started or who is like near the end of like doing a research which can be publishable. So the third step will be you have to evaluate and analyze the information that you have found, and surely you have to run some experiments on here. And fourth, you have to write, note, and organize your results and findings. Like when you have some findings, you need to note them down, and you need to differentiate from existing works. And you need to organize your results in such a way that you can pitch your idea that, okay, this is my idea and this is going to work for this specific community. So that is very important to know when you are doing research. The fifth one is, as I mentioned, you have to compare your work against existing baselines, like what people have already done. So you must have knowledge about that whenever you are pursuing a research in a particular domain. And the sixth one is writing the paper, which I will talk more detail in my later slides of this talk. And then you have to submit to a conference or journal, and then comes the like hard part, which is like go through the rejection or revision cycle. This will happen to everyone, so this is just a disclaimer warning. and then you have to publish the paper and move on to the next project. So this is the the overall like high level guideline of how someone can pursue with their research. But all of these steps like sound very simple, but there are like a lot of very deep level problems that you will going to face that you are going to face when you will start with one of these steps. So so first we need to know like what is research. So I call it like in that way that research is a systematic investigation and study of materials to reach new conclusions. So that means you need to come up with new ideas. But this slide is only to show you things what you should not do. Like for example, you should not expect to change the world with your early work. Like it's highly unlikely and it's highly unreasonable, and it will really demotivate you a lot. Like if you think from the start of your research journey that okay, through my research I'm going to change the whole world. And you should not avoid failure and rejections, so you have to accept it. So I really like one pitch from Sundar Pichai from Google, that wear your failure as a badge of honor. So that is a very important thing. And the third thing is you have to reinvent yourself by working on research that doesn't leverage core strength. So if you do that, this is very bad. Like if you are engaging on a research that do not have core strength, so do not proceed to that path. Rather, take your time and then try to find a domain where you are really passionate about and you really can have some contribution. Like this actually happens for people who are currently on their fourth year of undergrad. So whenever they are trying to choose a particular faculty for going through with their research, sometimes it happens that they do not get the faculty with whom they can proceed with a topic that will help them in the long run to proceed their future career on. Like for example, you have chosen computer vision as a topic, but you don't have that much passion for that area, so it will actually suffer you in the long run. So you need to be very careful about like choosing a particular topic where you really have passion on, and be perfect. Like this is really expensive and this do not make sense from the beginning. Like if you think okay, my research should go like should be like 100% perfect, unless I can come up with a like very unique idea I cannot publish anywhere. So if you have this kind of mindset, it's also going to impact you in the long run. And yeah, the final part is be afraid. It's too slow and ineffective, but like trust me, this is a really interesting journey. Whoever is interested in research, I welcome you to this beautiful world where you can explore different ideas, work on them, and try to generate some results that will actually help the community. Uh, so, as I say to everyone, that consistency is the key. So you might find that okay, at the beginning of the project you are really interested, everything is going well. Whenever you are trying to do some experiments in the middle of your project, you might find some challenges. But my suggestion will be like keep trying on that. And I think like my talk can help you on this, like how you should keep trying, like what are the ways for trying, and so on. So this is a very interesting slide. So I asked people to post me some questions that I can answer through my talk today. So I got a question that okay, like tell me what we should do from the very beginning. Like what's the baby step for doing research? So these are some tips for like first and second year students. So if you are a first or second year student, you can enjoy your days at the university. So you need to make friends and establish connections, and then like visit different exhibitions. Like you do not need to participate when you are on your first or second year, but you can at least go. I know like currently in Bangladesh, BUET, then MIST, and then some other organizations, including University of Dhaka, they host a lot of competitions. They could be programming contests, they could be robotics competition, they could be circuit contest, and so on. So whatever your domain is, wherever you are passionate about, go to that contest, see how people are pitching their ideas, ask them questions, and that will actually give you a like lot of exposure about this domain from the early on. So you can actually explore a lot of different topics, and based on that you can actually decide whatever will work for you and whatever will not work for you. So this is very important to understand from the beginning, that what are the things that make you that make you think about that topic even after like going home, even after when you are not studying your core topics of undergrad. What are the things that you want to explore more? So that is very important to identify. And another very good tip for students from first and second year undergrad is, no matter whatever your department is, are you you could be from triple E, you could be from computer science and engineering, but try to learn at least one programming language, and try to learn it in such a way that in future, if you need to learn another programming language, you do not need to learn the logics from the beginning. So you already have solid contribution on there, like you already know how these programming languages work. So if you learn a language in a very good manner, I think it will help you a lot in the future if you need to switch to some other language. So that is a very good tip for them. And try to improve your speaking and writing in English. That is very important because I sometimes feel like people who are doing research currently, they have very good ideas, but they cannot represent their ideas in some form of like speech or some form of writing. Like whenever I ask them that, okay, try to jot down your ideas in one page, whatever you are doing in this project. So it becomes very difficult for them to express themselves. They have solid ideas, I know, but it's very difficult if you cannot express your idea to someone else, because then the reviewers will not convince that yeah, your idea is solid. So that is another tip. Try to improve your writing and speaking in English. So this is a tips for people who are doing their undergrad and currently are in third and fourth year. So you have to think from a like different perspective, that okay, now you are not a first and second year student, so now you are a student who will actively involve in research if you want to do so from your third or fourth year. So then you need to ground your interest in a particular domain. When It's also okay, even if you are in your third or fourth year and you do not have the idea like how to proceed, it's okay, but try to ground your interest, try to explore many different areas, and try to find at least 2 to 3 areas that you find interesting. So that is very important. And then you have to explore also sub areas to gain more exposures. Like for example, in my experience, I did my undergrad on human activity recognition, but when I moved to Osaka University as a visiting researcher, I also got exposure to the domain of computer vision, like how wearable sensing domain is performing some research versus a codomain where they are using a different kind of sensor data. Yes, they are applying kind of same techniques, kind of same applied machine learning based modeling, but their input data is different. So there you will try to learn about like some new challenges that you did not learn in your previous project. So that is very important to also explore sub areas to gain more exposures. And the third is you have to improve your theoretical skill. Like whenever you are trying to proceed with some ideas, you need to show some evidence that that idea is going to work. And you can generate ideas only based on that if you have like solid theoretical skills, if you know those algorithms. So whenever I always tell that, okay, this kind of machine learning models that we have, they are like tools. Like for example, a tool could be a knife, or a tool could be a scissor, or a tool could be a hammer. So if I give you a task to put a nail on the wall, and if you use a knife to put the nail on that wall, so you know what will be the result. So you are using a tool and you are trying to accomplish that task, but because your selection of the tool was wrong, you are not getting results. The nail is not going onto the wall because you are using a knife instead of a hammer. So if you have like solid theoretical skill, that will actually help you to ground these thoughts that okay, for this project I need to use this kind of machine learning models, versus for other projects I need to use some different algorithms. So that's how the theoretical skills are going to help you. And this is an ideal time, I think, starting from the third year and at the very beginning of fourth year, where you can participate in different competitions. If you are doing it from your first or second year, like kudos to you, you are doing great. But yeah, third and fourth year is not late. You can also start participating in different competitions, whichever like interest you, because that will add some portion in your CV also, like when you are applying for a job or when you are applying for a higher studies. So this experience is important, and it will actually help you to actually collaborate with people. So one of my experience from Tech Fest and Tech Kriti. So these are like two international events hosted by IIT Kanpur and IIT Mumbai. So whenever I went there for competitions, I met a lot of new people. They were from different countries. They were also like very young researcher like me back at that time. And I had like communications with them. We used to collaborate on different projects. So this kind of exposure you will only get whenever you are trying to visit this national and international competition. So yeah, like make your own team and participate on that on those competitions to gain more exposure about this kind of domains even before starting research or like writing academic papers. And the final one is learn to improve your soft skills, like your presentation skills, your emailing skill. I will talk about those in detail, like how you can address those factors in my talk later. But yeah, so this is a high level overview that you also need to improve your soft skills. Like for example, can you tell me within 2 minutes whatever currently you are doing in your research if someone asks you, versus can you tell me in 30 seconds whatever you are doing? Because your audience will be different in different places. Whenever you are trying to visit a competition, you have to pitch your ideas to your colleagues, like for example, other undergrad students from other universities. Versus when you are applying for a job, you have to pitch your idea to professionals. So you have to make your pitch ready for these different stakeholder groups. So that will actually make you more confident. So I always believe that you always need to be prepared for a pitch wherever you are, like whatever you are currently doing, you need to make sure that you can actually explain that to people. So that is going to help you a lot whenever you are trying to develop yourself as a researcher. So the first thing that you should do even before starting research is search for problems around you. And then I actually hear this question a lot, that okay, how can I actually search about problems? Because it's very difficult to search problems around you. But if you look carefully, you will figure out that the daily systems you are working on, they have some flaws. Like for example, uh, there was a news that there is racism embedded in US healthcare. Like, for example, US hospitals are predicting that patients who are white rather than black, they are getting more cares whenever they are visiting hospitals. Why this is happening? You can try to figure out some problems around that. You can analyze patient data, like how this can be varied to different races and how this problem can be solved using technological solutions. Could be one interesting domain to explore. For example, you can think about the crime sector. Can you predict that, okay, a specific area or zone will have higher crime rate in the upcoming years by analyzing their crime data? Could be another interesting domain. Third thing, recently I heard about a news about Amazon's hiring policy. So what what they were actually called on upon is Amazon prefers men rather than women in the interview process when they are hiring, and actually they are using an algorithm to actually select from the early sorts of CVs that they received, and the algorithm was highly biased to favor men rather than women. And the reason was the model that was trained to do this kind of task, there, the quantity between male CV and female CV, there was an imbalance, which actually resulted in such a big error. So this is another big problem, that you can identify from your surrounding. You can also think from the context of Bangladesh, what are the current problems there, and where you can do some contributions to start with your research. So there is another interesting topic that I recently figured out, that algorithms are deciding who gets the first vaccine. Should we trust them or not? Like, for example, there was COVID. Who could say there could be another this kind of disease in the future? So whenever we are trying to suggest interventions, whenever we are trying to suggest some solutions to people, we need to think first that whatever approach we are currently using, is there any kind of flaw in there or not? If you can identify some flaw, then try to think based on your expertise, like using your expertise, can you try to solve that problem or not? So these are like some kind of brainstorming you can do with your friends, to identify some problems that really seems interesting to you and your friends. So how to find research ideas? So at first we have to look around. There are lots of problems. I would say like there are lots of flaws in our law systems, in our healthcare, in our government policy, and try to identify like how much accurate existing models are if we are using any kind of model. Like for example, if we are using a model to identify whether there is any error in your national ID card or not. So whenever we will send those NID cards to people, before sending those NID card, we'll run an evaluation and try to identify some errors. And if we can detect those kind of errors, we'll try to group them, like what kind of errors are more prominent whenever we are doing the NIDs from Bangladesh. So you can also think from that perspective. Can a machine learning model or can some other algorithm solve this kind of difficult task that on the daily basis we are suffering from? And we also need to identify, are these models biased to specifically any kind of race, any kind of gender, or any kind of specific thing? So I have some research on this domain, where I also know some researchers who are working on, for example, the Bangladeshi social media, like people from Bangladesh. I have seen that there is a tendency in social media, especially in Facebook, where some people become really toxic. And and how they become toxic? They become toxic through their comments. They become toxic through their posts. Yeah, surely your idea cannot be aligned with someone else's idea, but for that you cannot actually blame that user, or you cannot actually become toxic to them. So can you actually identify this kind of behaviors from the social media and try to generate a safer environment for people, a safer environment for underserved communities? Like for example, the report says that women has a more like a lot more chance getting like victimized in social media than men. So how these situations can be changed? You can actually think from the perspective of your research domain, from the perspective of your expertise, to jot down this kind of ideas and then use the technology to solve those problems. So here I think the behavior modeling, here the language models that Google currently is using, here for example, the emotion analysis, here the facial expression analysis, how people are writing, how many posts they are giving per day, how many comments they are giving per day, what is the percentage of toxicity in their comments or in their posts. This all can be identified using existing technological solutions. So what you need to do, you need to at first find that domain where you can have some interesting contributions, and then use technology. So what I see in like a lot of people, especially from our subcontinent, that we try to think about the solution first. We try to think, okay, what kind of machine learning are most popular these days, and we'll use those kind of models in my research work, and that will actually help you. But no, this is not true for every cases. Like at first you need to think and identify the problem first, and then proceed with the technological solution. I think if you can switch your idea in the order that I just mentioned, that will actually help you a lot whenever you are trying to do some research in a particular domain. So now I will talk a little bit about how you can read papers and how you can do literature review. So this is very important. When you know about a particular domain, when you have identified a particular problem, so the next step you need to do, you need to search for research papers, and then you need to do some literature review. And what does literature review means? Literature review means you need to figure it out, the problem that you identified, why people has not already solved it. And if you actually see that you have not found many papers who are actually dealing with this problem, that means that idea is very unique. People are not trying to solve that problem. Now, take some pause here. Don't need to be very happy on that, because there could be two possible scenarios. One possible scenario is the idea is very unique. That's why people have not appeared to it. And the second thing is the idea is very challenging. That's why people try to solve it, but they could not. And that's why there are not many existing papers on that domain. So you need to figure it out. What is the current situation about the problem that you have identified, and then do the literature review. So I always tell people that don't read the whole paper. So whenever I try to suggest some people that, okay, there is a new publication from this research group, try to read the paper and let me know what you think about that. So I see that mostly people who are at the very beginning in of their research journey, like for example, if they're especially undergrad students, they try to read the whole paper. This is not a very good approach. Rather, you can follow this 3-pass method that also I follow even these days. So do not read the whole paper from start to end. Rather, read the paper up to 3 phases. So the first pass is, here our goal is to get a general idea about the paper. So it might happen that, okay, I can get interested into that paper, or it might happen that, okay, I will discard the paper. I will not read further. So the first pass is to identify what are the general ideas. The second pass is to understand the paper's content. I mean, if you moved from first pass, so then this, like you already know the general idea of the paper, then the second goal of yours should be whether can you understand the paper's content, the paper's method, and whatever technique they are using, can you understand them or not? And if you think that, okay, you have understood that, then you will move to the third and final pass, which is understand the paper's details in depth. And you will only come up to this path if that paper is highly relevant to your problem. So at the first phase, we identified the problem. At the second phase, we identified what existing people are doing through literature review, and whether this is a really challenging problem, or this is a very unique problem, or this is a problem that many people has already worked with. So there could be like these 3 possible scenarios, and then you will try to read the papers and do these 3 passes. So I will talk a more detailed version of pass 1. So as I mentioned, here our goal was to get a general idea about the paper. So what to do? At first, you have to read the title, abstract, and the introduction. But before going to the introduction, and even before reading the abstract, there is a pro tip for you. So what most people do not do, they do not read the author names, authors' institutions, and author's current working position. So these are very important even before you read a paper. And like I will explain like why that are important. So you have to read at first who are these authors, whether you already know them or not. So if you already know them, that means they belong to a community where your research interest is. So that is very important. Second is, what is their department? So for example, think about a paper title, wearable sensor based human activity recognition for healthcare. And you see there are 3 persons, person A, person B, and person C. All of them are from computer science and engineering department. So then you will try to think, okay, wearable sensor is there, and their application domain is healthcare. And all of these 3 authors who wrote that paper are from computer science and engineering department. Oh, that means they have not actually built a system which can track your activity. Rather, this paper mostly will talk about modeling contributions. This paper mostly talk about how we can identify patterns in the data. That means this paper will work mostly on the modeling part, not about like how we can collect data or how we can build smart devices or how we can work with smart sensors and so on. Now, the second scenario is think the title is same, wearable sensor based human activity recognition for healthcare. But now there are one author from electrical engineering department, one author from computer science and engineering department, and also there is one clinician like who is probably a doctor or who is probably a person who suggests people how to do different kinds of exercise. That person is a professional health expert. So when you will see that there are three authors and there are like people from different departments, you have to think from this point of view that whatever contribution this paper will have, they will have contributions from different perspectives. They will talk about how this kind of modeling can be applied in real healthcare domain. They will talk about because there was a triple guy here, so that person might have contribution on the data cleaning part or the data collection part, and also they will talk about the modeling part. So when you will identify the department and the current position of the author, so why I mentioned position, because you also need to identify whether this is a paper written by people from academia, I mean people who are doing their masters or their PhD, or it is a people from industry. Like for example, if you see that in the author's affiliation, these people are from Spotify or these people are from Google, you have to think that in this paper, they will mostly talk about efficiency, because industry guy cares about the efficiency a lot rather than actually telling you about like, for example, their application to a particular domain like healthcare. Rather, they will talk about like how solid their machine learning model is, how solid their new language model is that they are proposing. So when you will try to identify these different perspectives from the very beginning, even before starting reading your paper, you will have this mindset that whenever I'm reading the paper, I need to make sure that whoever the person talking in this paper with me, they are from this background. And whenever they are writing something, they are writing a paragraph and you are reading that paragraph and you are trying to understand, you will think that, okay, a clinician is trying to make this point. So I need to think from their point of view. So that is a very important tip when you have just started reading a paper. Okay, so the next thing is you need to have a glance at the mathematical content in your past one. Like for example, you will try to determine the theoretical foundations and then you will go to reference section. So at first you have read the title, author's affiliation, second, third is the abstract, fourth is the introduction, and then you will go directly towards the reference section. And then you will just have a glance at the titles of those references, and then you try to make sure, okay, which will be your next paper that you can read from this reference list. So that is very important for this past one. And what you should get after doing this past one, you will get to identify the category, like what kind of paper it is, what paper is it related to, I mean you will understand the context, you will understand the correctness, like do the assumptions appear valid or not, what are the main contributions of in this paper, and is the paper is well written or not. So these are the informations that you are going to get after past one. So then you will move to past two, and here our goal was to understand the paper's content. So here you have to read the paper, but you will skip the specific details, like for example mathematical proofs. Rather, you will try to read the figures, you will see the figures and read the captions. And you will pay special attention to graphs. So whenever, because it's more easy, and this is actually a skill that you need to develop. That okay, even after seeing a figure at a paper, you can actually understand even before reading the paragraph whatever the authors are telling there. And here you have to also do some writing tasks. So you have to write the key points of the paper and you have to write down terms that you don't understand. Like, for example, recently I was work. I was reading a paper that actually talks about people who are suffering from type 1 diabetics and how we can use sensor data to help them manage their glucose level throughout the day. So there were like specific terms that I was not understanding because they were from a different domain. So I wrote down the term and then I need to do separate Google search for understanding those specific terms also. And you also have to mark relevant reference that I told earlier, that you have to mark those references that you will read next from this paper. And what you should get after like this past two, so you will understand the content of the paper, you will able to summarize the main points with evidence, and you will be able to identify what are the strengths and weakness in this paper, which is very important. And then the third part is understanding the paper's detail in depth. So you will reach up to this level if you are really interested in that paper. I mean, this is something that you want to do yourself. So that's why now, if you have reached for a paper in past three, that means you have to cite this work for like whatever the paper you are writing in the future. That is a highly relevant research paper for you. So you will note down that paper name, you will save it somewhere, and you will read that paper actually a couple of times. So here, what you will do, you will virtually recreate the work. That is the first step. Even before you try something else, you will recreate the work, because as I mentioned earlier, at one point of writing a research, you have to compare your work with existing baselines. So you will see that some people has used a data set which is not public. So whatever the method they are proposing in their data set, you cannot use their accuracy in your paper because you are using a completely different data set. So how you will know that another method some people has already proposed, how that method will work for the data set you are working on? So that's why you have to recreate the work using the method that has been proposed in that particular paper where you are in currently past three. And you will challenge all assumptions in that paper. So if that paper has told you that, okay, let's assume assumption A, you will try to challenge that assumption, because otherwise you cannot generate some other assumptions B, C, and D that will be better than assumptions A that has been already proposed. And think about how you would present your idea, like whenever you are on past three in a paper, how you can make something which is unique than what has already been proposed in existing research. And also you have to jot down your ideas for future work, like what can be done further, what you cannot do, and what you should get from here. So you will be able to identify the hidden failings and incorrect assumptions in the paper, and you will gain insight into the proof and presentation technique. So how you can actually present your idea. And you can also pinpoint missing citations or technical issues here. So that is also important. So this is a like flowchart that I show to people, that start from pass one and then ask this question: does this paper interest you or not? Do you know enough about this area? And do the authors make valid assumptions or not? If the answer is no, so then stop. You don't need to read that paper. If the answer is yes, then go to pass two and then ask this question: do you understand the paper or not? If the answer is yes, you understand the paper, so then you need to stop. You don't need to read further. And if you say, okay, not really, I haven't understood the paper, so then you need to ask the question: do you need to understand it to be successful in your career? I mean, are you going to proceed a research in the very specific domain or not? If the answer is yes, so then you need to do pass three, and you need to go to a cycle of like related work from the reference that you got from that particular paper, and then you can say that, okay, you are done with the literature review. And here is a pro tip: you can use mainly, or you can also use a Chrome feature. So there is a Chrome feature. If you will see a box here. So if you click here, you can actually create a reading list for you. So whenever you can find a paper, you can just put it for like future reference. So whenever you get some time, you can have a look on it. So yeah, these are the two ways you can actually track whatever papers you are reading. Okay, so now the next task is to finding papers to read. So I always suggest people that at the very first step, find three highly cited papers in the area. Do pass one on each. specifically pay attention to the background section, like whatever the paper is talking, and look for references to other survey papers, because whenever you are reading a survey paper, you are consuming a lot of knowledge from that particular domain. So this is very important. And also try to find commonalities in related work. Like for example, always read common cited papers, follow up with top authors or conferences, and see what papers have cited this work and what papers didn't cite this work. If you figure out that, okay, there are some other works that hasn't cited this paper but is highly relevant, you can take note of those papers and you can put them whenever you are writing your own research paper. So there is another pro tip how you can actually use Google Scholar for finding papers. So if you search a paper on Google Scholar, you can actually sort this paper by relevance. Like for example, if you choose here like since 2018, it will show you all the papers for the search. Like for example, multi-kernel. And you can also sort them by relevance, sort them by publishing date, if they include patents or not, if they include citations or not. And also what you can do, you can actually check who are the people who cited this paper. And you can also got the author information here. And you can go to the author's profile. If you really like that research, you can also see some of the other research of that particular author. So I think like this tip helps people a lot whenever they are planning for research. So the next tip will be how you can organize your project from the beginning. So for organizing your paper, you need to choose a reference manager. As I said, you can use Mendeley or you can use EndNote, Zotero, and also you can use this Chrome feature that I just showed. I am currently using that for your reference manager, where you will save all of those papers that you are currently reading. And there should be a place to keep unread papers. Like you can maintain a physical folder for each of these projects. You can name them accordingly. And also you need to keep track of notes where you are summarizing those papers. That is also very important. And then you have to use a system to easily access paper later. Like for example, today you have read a paper that will actually help you 5 months later when you are writing your own research paper. So you need to maintain this so that you can easily find that paper which you read 5 months early. So that's how it's very important to organize your papers and other files. And how you can actually organize your project. So what I do, I maintain Google Keep for short note tracking, like my daily tasks. I use Google calendars for deadlines. Like for example, if I have to submit an assignment, if I have to submit, for example, a proposal to my advisor, or if I need to submit the introduction section of the paper. So I actually maintain the Google Calendar for these specific deadlines and mark them. So it actually reminds me whenever my deadline is approaching. And you can use internet bookmark tool to save papers and files, as I showed earlier also. If you are a like technical person who writes codes for your research, you can maintain GitHub or any of your favorite repository to organize your project codes. And always maintain cloud backups, even for your paper that you are writing and for the projects that you are doing. Anything could happen with your laptop or working computer, so always maintain cloud backup. So how to start writing a good paper? This is a like very difficult question and very challenging question. So tips for good writing a good research paper would be, you have to identify the novelties. So at first you need to do the literature survey, and you need to compile the list of existing papers that I already mentioned, and then try to identify similarities and differences to highlight what will be your contribution. So you will try to note down contribution A, B, and C has been done by people X. Contribution D, E, and F has been done by people Y. So now you have to pitch your idea and show to the reviewers that this is how your idea is different from existing ideas. So that is very important tip for writing a good paper. You have to have technical soundness. So that means you are using existing method on an existing data set and then showing those results on a paper. That is not a very good technical contribution. Rather, you need to come up with some solutions of the problem that people has not addressed so far. So this is how you can make sure that there are technical soundness in your paper. And then you have to do evaluation. You have to do literature survey, and you need to demonstrate how well your approach works quantitatively and qualitatively against existing works. So quantitatively means you need to show the performance analysis, how better your model performs, and qualitative analysis means you need to make sure the model that you have created has no bias. The model that you have created works for a very high group of people. It's not biased towards men versus women, or it's not biased for a specific race, and so on. So these are the criteria that you are going to address in qualitative evaluation. And you have to take advantage of online resources. So you have to take advantage of online lectures, conference talks, Reddits, and so on. So try to answer these questions while reading a paper. So at first, you will ask yourself, what did the author try to accomplish in this paper that I'm currently reading? What were the key elements of the paper? Did the author miss this important thing that I am currently thinking will be necessary for this kind of domain? Note down those ideas. What can you use yourself in the future whenever you are writing your own research? Try to note down those ideas and share with your advisor or share with your colleagues who will be on the paper. Uh, Also, what other references do you want to follow? Is there any technical difference that is important for you or not? Like, for example, if the paper belongs to your main research domain, and you need to rederive math from the scratch. So you need to make sure, do you want to go to that path, or you need to have some contribution in the applied part? Like, for example, already there is an established method. You figured out that there was a problem in the loss function. So if I actually change the loss function to my proposed solution, that will actually make this model a better model. So you can have like contribution from many different perspectives. So it's very important to identify from which perspective you are going to tackle that problem. And then for code, you can at first run some open source code that are already available on the internet. You can read the details of the code, and then you can try to re-implement that whole code from scratch. That will actually help you at the very beginning when you are at the start of your research journey to understand that project well. And about reading papers, I always give these tips to everyone that consistent reading of N papers a week is much better than reading a lot of paper in short bursts. This is true for any learning actually. And this is another thing that you can do after reading your paper. You can try to write a paper review. So you will at first, you will maintain a document where you will write the paper title, you will write the author's name, and then you will write short summary of the paper in one paragraph, like what you understood after reading the paper. Then you will try to identify some bullet points, like for example, what are the strengths of the paper, what are the weakness of the paper, what are the overall merits in this paper. Like you can also assign scores for that paper, like for example, -3 will be a strong reject, 0 will be borderline, and +3 will be strong accept. And then you will ask this question and try to find out the answer, like should this paper be a best paper candidate or not? What do you think about this paper? This will actually help you to understand whether you have actually figured out what was the content in that paper or not. Did you properly understand the paper or not? You can easily figure it out if you try to answer these questions. And then you will write these two things, although these two things are dedicated to people who do the review for actual research work, but you can try to practice. So for example, comments to authors. If you need to suggest those authors whose paper you are reading, what would be your comments? How you can say something like, for example, in your method section, I identified that you have used method A. Why not you have used method B? And why not you have gone for method C, and so on. So these are the some criteria that you can identify after reading a paper. So now this is a very important skill for a researcher, is to communicate, network, and collaborate, because that will actually give you opportunity to do research. So even before you are trying to do research, this is a very important thing. If you can communicate with people, if you can establish some connections, and if you have the networking capability. So The first one is personal and professional promotion. So from this part of this talk, it's going to be very informal. So I will share some tips and tricks. So at first, try to write a CV and resume for you, especially if you are already a student in your third year or fourth year of in the undergrad. Even you can start writing it from the first or second year. So what you will do, you will see that there are a lot of empty places. You are not finding things, what to put into the CV. So that will actually give you that understanding that what are the things that you need to pursue to fill up those gaps. So it's very important to start writing your CV. At that point, you will realize what are the things you want to do in your life, and then you will try to search for criteria that will actually help you establish those things. And why I wrote CV and resume both here, because there is a basic difference between CV and resume. Please try to follow that. CV is a very long history about you. It can, there are like no page limitations in CV. You can write your CV like starting from what scholarship you got from like in your class, like whenever you are in class 5 or class 8 or class 10, up to like whatever research you are currently doing, your projects and everything. So that is actually a basic summary about you. So that's why CV do not have a page limitation. But in most of the cases, you will see that whenever you are applying for a job or you are applying for higher studies, they will ask your resume. So resume is not your CV. Resume has page limitation. It should be one page for a very early researcher, and maximum 2 page if you have like done a like lot of research. So try to keep in mind how to make it short, make it concise, so that whenever you are applying for a job, your CV or resume is not getting desk rejected. In most of the cases, people do not read that CV because there are like so many unnecessary information there. So yeah, please try to make sure that you are following the right path whenever you are submitting your resume to a company or for higher studies. And then the second important thing is personal website. Um, Especially for people who are doing technical works, it's very important if you maintain a personal website, because as I mentioned, resume is only a one page document. So here you cannot tell everything about yourself. Website is an option where you can actually in detail you can mention your projects, your works, about your research paper, whatever contributions you had, how many experience you have joining different kinds of programming contests, and different kinds of robotic contests and so on. So every information you can keep updated on your website. And the third is social media. This is very important. I wish someone could actually tell me when I was an undergrad. So Twitter and LinkedIn are great to social media platform for researchers. So if you are not in Twitter and LinkedIn, please open an account, and you will always see that. I always hear this question from students who are especially applying for PhD, that they find it really difficult to search for a faculty who works in the domain that that person is interested in, and they are like highly confused, like, okay, which person I should send the email. If you are on the Twitter, you will see, you can actually follow professors from different universities, and you can actually follow their update. And most people, especially in the US, use Twitter for academia purposes. So they will actually update if they're taking new students, if there is an opening for undergrad research opportunities. So this is also a great opportunity where you can find some position and shoot an email that, okay, I am a second year undergrad student and these are my expertise. And I think that whatever research you are currently pursuing is highly aligned with my research interest. And that's why I try to work over the next few months with you, and I see on the Twitter that there is an opportunity, there is an opening in your lab. Can we talk more about these prospects and opportunities? If you send this kind of email to those people, there is a chance that even you can get a research position, even paid research position in your undergrad. So yesterday I was talking with a professor from University of Illinois, Chicago, and that prof told me actually she is actually working with many undergrads from India and China. So why not Bangladesh? Like we also should utilize this kind of opportunity. should be smart about it. We should be confident about our expertise. You don't need to be expert because they know you are an undergrad. You are on your second year or third year or fourth year of your undergrad. They know what how much you can contribute. They also want to give you this learning experience. So always look for these opportunities and try to shoot them emails. And definitely there is a chance that you might get a position. So how you can promote yourself in person, that is another important criteria that you guys should follow. So whenever you are visiting a conference or a workshop, even if it's online, try to ask people, what do you do or what do you work on? So this is an icebreaker to start a conversation with the people who might work in your domain and who might give you some prospects about some work that you are going to pursue in your future research career. So you might gain some insights that, okay, the idea that you are thinking will work or not. And I find it actually in the people of my community that we are very shy, and also sometimes we are not confident about sharing your ideas. But trust me, always share your idea with people. You should not fear that your idea will be stolen. This never happens, because if your idea is stolen, that means that's not a very good idea. That is what I believe on. So yeah, always share your idea with people, ask them good questions, and always announce your name and institution whenever you are asking a question or whenever you are trying to talk with the people. By this way, that person will remember, and in future, if you meet with that person or if you ask for some opportunities, you might get to hear some good suggestions from them. And yeah, so these are like some basic tips whenever you are attending a programming contest or a workshop or a conference where you can introduce yourself to many people who are working professionals. Going to talks, it's very important. So uh, in my undergrad, I did not have this opportunity. At that time, Zoom talks were not that much famous, and in-person talks, I mean, like going there and attending it was very difficult. And like, for example, now I am at USA. At that time, the people who were in USA, they only delivered talk when they actually used to visit Bangladesh. But because of this pandemic, that is a positive note from there, that we are currently utilizing this opportunity to also delivering talk over online. So yeah, go to those talks, ask good questions. If you can meet with the speaker, try to do so and get good ideas from how others present their work, how they frame their work, how they present. So today I'm not giving a like technical presentation, so that's why my slides are kind of informal. But whenever I'm giving a technical presentation, I try to be like very careful about like what I'm putting on the slide. So whenever you are attending a talk on a actually, if that is a technical talk, try to follow like how that presenter is presenting their idea and how they are showing their demos and how they answer audience questions. And this is in-class activity. This is called elevator pitch. I'm not sure how many people have heard about this. I think like a lot of people have heard about this. So elevator pitch is, think you are going from floor 1 to floor 10, and suddenly in your lift there is Elon Musk or there is like Bill Gates. So and then you'll be like, okay, hi, I am Anindo, like, and I want to tell you something about myself and what I work on, because I'm really interested working in Tesla or in Microsoft. So what you will say whenever you are going from floor 1 to floor 10, you have only 30 seconds thing. And within those 30 seconds, you have to express yourself, because after Elon Musk or Bill Gates leave that lift, he's gone. Like, you cannot actually access that person. So you need to make sure that within 30 seconds, you can pitch your idea. So that is a very important step before even starting your research, or even after you have published the paper, how you can talk about that paper to someone, how you can actually express your idea to someone else. So that is a very important thing. So here I will talk about some of the machine learning career advice that you might try to do if you are like pursuing for a job or a master's or a PhD degree. So recruiters always look for technical skill if you are from technical domain. So I might be sound like a biased person because I work in a technical domain. So I am actually giving these suggestions from my experience that they actually look for technical skills. They try to figure out whether this person can code or not, whether this person can come up with new technical ideas on. So to improve your technical skills, read blogs, take part in competitions, to very important steps, and build a project, even if small at the beginning. Try to collaborate with your friends, and then like build a small project. Try to highlight that on your website or on your portfolio, and see that will make that will make a difference, because whenever you are submitting your resume, the recruiter will try to look for your website. They will go to your website and they will try to find out like whatever projects you have done. So that is a very important thing. Meaningful and significant work is also very important. So your work should be application specific, where you can pitch some idea that okay, the community will be helpful. You are working for the well-being of people at the end. So that is very important. And self-development is also important. So you have to represent yourself online and offline, and you have to perform some leadership skills. So this is a Venn diagram you can see. So in the blue side, this is what your best prospects really want, like what you want. Like, do you want to go for a company? Do you want to go for a research community, or do you want to go to academia or schools? And the green actually talks about what you do very well, and the red actually talks about what your competitors do very well. So here, if you think that okay, you know about your best prospects, and you know that okay, your competitors are doing very well in that particular prospect. So my suggestion will be don't go there, because that field must be saturated, and it will be very difficult for you to come up with a unique solution. Yeah, you can come up with a unique solution, but it's not a very good thing to start with that particular domain, because it could demotivate you. So okay, and this thing is like, you know what your competitors do very well and what you do very well. So that means who cares about the competitors? So you can definitely go for that domain. And third thing is what I call value proposition, which is what your best prospects really wants. I mean, what your final goal is and what you do very well. If you can intersect between these two things, so that is where your value proposition is. And if you go there, there is a high chance of success there. And yeah, we always are in the intersection of three things. Even I am. So yeah, uh, I never complain about that. And this is an advice for mostly like people who are trying to pursue a PhD career. So it's very important for you to publish somewhere, especially in good conferences and journals. So what good idea I can give you: keep track of the conference deadlines whenever they are, and try to look for their papers, try to look for their talks. I maintain a Google Doc, kind of like whatever you are seeing on the slide, where I write the H index of the conference name, where it will be, the submission deadline, and also the website, and try to email them if you can join as a volunteer for those conference. Because if you are selected as a volunteer for that conference, you do not need to worry about like publishing a paper and then go there. So you can also visit that conference as a student volunteer, and you can also represent that in your CV that I have visited those conference. And during my PhD, I visited one conference at UBCom Singapore, and that actually helped me a lot to connect with people. So for example, I hear from people a lot that they're emailing a lot of professors and they are not replying. But in that conference, trust me, after my talk, a lot of professors actually reach me. They ask me like, what are your plans? Do you want to do a PhD? Feel free to like shoot me an email and look for opportunities in my lab and so on. So these are the opportunities you can get if you visit a conference. And now they are like more easy because some of the conferences are online, so you do not need to go there. You can also the talks online, you can ask them question, you can collaborate with people, and you can network with people. That will actually help you a lot whenever you are applying for a higher studies or applying for a job position in the like international countries. So the do's and don'ts. So I'm almost at the end of my talk. So there are like a couple of slides left, I think 3 to 4. So now I will talk about like what are the things you should do and what are the things you shouldn't do. So please don't write generic emails to people you want to do research with. So don't write like, for example, I'm really interested in your work, you are doing a great work, because no one's actually cares about those emails. They will think that, okay, you are just passing your time, you have not done your homework about me, so I am not interested in doing research with you or collaborate with you. So always in your email, address the why question, why you are interested in this project. And based on your current expertise, why do you think you will be a valuable asset to the lab that you are applying for? Always sell your work. Don't try to pitch like, for example, I have done this, I have done that. But try to say how your existing experiences that you got from working some project relate to the interest to the people that you are applying for, and how you can make a contribution at their level. So try to focus on this idea and do your homework about the person you are emailing. Try to read their latest research papers, because sometimes I also see that people are emailing another person about a work that that person used to do 10 years back. So now that person does a totally different thing. And if they are getting an email about a work that they were doing 10 years back, they might be thinking you have not done your homework. So please do that. And be concise, but be coherent and comprehensive. So whenever you are writing an email to a professional, try to make your email concise, but don't forget to mention the points that I just said. And this is the most important slide of this talk, I think. So how you can actually do your own research. So what are the steps? So first, as I mentioned, select a particular domain and select a research question to start on. For example, you could select the domain. For me, it was like I chose computer vision as a subpart. Now I'm working on HCI. I had some experiences of working in theoretical machine learning and applied machine learning. And also currently I'm interested in like ethics in ML and so on. So you can actually select a particular domain that you want to work on. Then for people who are working in the machine learning domain, this advice is for them. But for others, this could be your experimental part where you have to gather some existing data that you will be working on. So collecting a data is always a lengthy process. So if you are at the very beginning of your research, try to search for publicly available data sets. And there are like a lot of open access data set. And there is another pro tip. If you find that a data set is not publicly available, you can actually email those persons who worked on this data set. And you could ask them, hey, I really want to work on this project. These are my ideas. As I always say, always share your ideas. Your ideas is never going to be stolen. So share your ideas, and it might happen that you get an opportunity to collaborate with that group also. Actually, this happened with me. One data set I was not finding online, and I emailed them and I told them about like one paragraph or two paragraph about my idea, and then I actually got an opportunity to collaborate with them. So this is a very important skill where you can email for a person looking for their papers or looking for a data set and so on. So that will actually build the connection between you and those groups. So by this way, you will actually know a lot of people. Even if you are an introvert person who cannot actually share their insights in person or in online talks, emailing is a very good thing for them also. So the next step is to do literature review, do the 3 parts that I taught in this talk, and follow this method that I follow. This is promise, obstacle, and solution. Try to understand what are the promise of your project that you are going to pursue. What are the challenges that you might face whenever you are going to do that research work? And what is your solution for that project? How that solution is different from existing solutions. So, 3 different understandings you need to make sure you have before you proceed for a particular research domain. So always summarize and sort in a spreadsheet. Always take notes whenever you are reading a paper. Take note on the method, take note on the core contribution. Whenever you are writing some codes, try to document them, what problem this code addresses, what was the solution, and where you find that unique idea and how you formulate your idea. Always note down, because that will actually help you whenever you are writing your findings in a research paper in the future. And people who are on the final year of their undergrad try to look for opportunities, try to email conference persons and try to tell them that, hey, I want to be a reviewer in your conference. And in most of the cases, you are going to get reject. You will be told that, okay, no, you can be a reviewer, but at least that actually establishes the connection. So then when you are doing your masters and you have already published on that conference, then when you will again ask that, hey, I actually knocked you 1 year earlier, that time I didn't have that much exposure to research, but now I have more exposure about this particular domain, and I have done the following things in this 1 or 2 periods of my masters on my PhD, and I have also published one paper in that conference. So I think I would be a great fit for a potential reviewer for your future conferences or future journal. Can we discuss more on this opportunity? And there is a high chance that they will reply that, yeah, you are welcome to the reviewer panel and so on. So try to utilize this opportunity just by shooting a great email. So try to learn how to write very good emails and how to communicate with people and how to share your ideas with them. So this is a like very good tips for the people who want to pursue research. And implement few existing method on the dataset, as I said, because you need to differentiate your own work from the existing method. So that is also a very important steps of like doing research. For if you want to apply a method for multiple data sets, try to find a research question and try to write a overall promise obstacle solutions. Like for example, in one of my projects, I work with patient behavior modeling and use the same method for transferring knowledge for a complete different domain. Like for example, aggressive driving modeling. So whenever you are working on multidisciplinary area, try to make a solid understanding what will be the promise, will be the person that will be benefited through your research and so on. Try to ground these ideas and try to make notes which can actually help you whenever you are writing a research paper. So promised must have some impact in the real world. And when you are writing the obstacle, try to follow the trajectory of timeline. So for example, you will figure out that you have identified problem one in that particular domain, but there already a solution exists from 1990, that is solution one. Then you will identify that another paper has mentioned problem two, referencing that paper one, and then they are also providing solution two. And whenever you are continuing with these steps, at last you will see that there is problem 10 and there is still no solutions for that problem. That means that is the problem you need to work on, and your solution will address the problem. And the future research work will try to address more problems and find more solutions. This is how a research progress. So the final thing is your solution, which is basically the methodology section of your paper, where you are going to say what was your unique contribution and how your research is different from the existing solutions. So that was like the overall advice or best practices for research. So you need to identify the problem setting, you need to read recent conference or journal papers, you need to discuss with your colleagues. Once you have your own problem setting, then you always present to colleagues. So I have seen people do not do that. Even in like University of Dhaka, I have seen that whenever they are doing their fourth year thesis, one friend do not have any idea about other friend what they are doing. Do not do that. Like try to share your ideas, try to present in front of others. You can tell your friend that, okay, I will present in front of you and you will present in front of me, and then we will understand each other's project and we will also try to ask you questions. So that will actually help you a lot in your actual project presentation. And idea and formulation phase is the most difficult things for research. So for that, you have to read a lot of papers and then you have to think critically. You have to learn the skill of constructive criticism. If you just say that, okay, this paper is bad, this is not going to work. You have to understand why this method is bad that has been proposed by another paper and so on. So this critical thinking is very important whenever you are trying to pursue research. So this is, I think, almost the end of the slide. So this is about like what a good research paper looks like. So a good research paper always have a very solid story. that tells that like looks coherent. Whenever you are reading the paper, you are understanding the context, why that problem was important, why the solution proposed is unique, and why others people have already not done this work. So you are mentioning the challenges, as I mentioned. You are also mentioning the promise of that work, and finally you will try to present your solution. And always name your research from the very beginning, what you are working on. It is easier then to talk with people about your research, that hey, I'm working on this particular project, this is the name of the project, and these are the ideas that I'm going to try for this project, and so on. So these are some tips for a good research paper. So yeah, thanks a lot for hearing my talk. I hope this talk will be helpful for everyone. And if you have any questions, like feel free to ask me. And these questions could be based on my talk, or this could be like based on anything you can ask. So yeah, go on. Or you can also write the question in the chat.
Thank you, Anindya, for this amazing informative session. Yes, if the audience have any question, please you can raise your hand or put the question in the chat option. I can read your question from the chat option if you write it there, or you can raise your hand and
Okay,
unmute yourself.
I can see one very interesting question in the chat. That is why I have switched from Tripoli to CSE. Um, uh, there will be like two way of giving this answer. The first answer is, first of all, in academia and even in the job market, there is nothing called switch. So for example, you will see that even there are people working in Google who works in physical medicine. And then you might ask, what are they doing at Google? Like Google is a search engine. Why people from physical medicine working there? And the answer is they are working because whenever you try to address a problem, there could be multiple different perspectives of solving that problem. So if you think that, okay, you are trying to create a Google Glass that will solve people's health related problems, you need that domain expertise. So you need to hire someone who works on that particular domain. So there I will say that I have not actually switched from Tripoli to CSE. Rather, the kind of research that I was doing in my undergrad, they were mostly related to how we can analyze the sensor data. So to grab a better understanding about how different electrical systems work or how embedded systems work. I did my undergrad from electrical engineering, but then I became more interested on how we can capture the patterns from the data. So for that, I need to use the machine learning techniques and different algorithms that covers the area from the CS side. So whenever I applied to different positions for my PhD, I got a position in CSE. And currently, I'm also doing most of my research on machine learning and explainable AI. So that is actually, you can say, a shift from Triple to CSE.
Yes, Shamat Tasin, you can ask your question and
Yeah.
unmute yourself.
Thank you, Anindya, for your wonderful talk. I'm Shamat Tasin, fourth year student currently at University of Dhaka, Tripoli. So what I want to say is, in undergraduate level, students sometimes engage in relatively smaller projects, either because of their hobby or because of some competition. I think you did so in your undergrad life. So actually, most often these projects are not novel enough to qualify as research projects. But I think it's really important to document them. So how would you advise on documenting these kind of projects?
Very important. তো আমি যেটা বলবো সেটা হচ্ছে যে যদি তোমরা আন্ডার গ্রেড থেকেই কোনো প্রজেক্ট কম্পিটিশন বা এই ধরনের কিছুর সাথে ইনভলভ থাকো, তাহলে তোমরা যেটা করতে পারো সেটা হচ্ছে যে যখন তোমরা কোনো একটা প্রবলেম সলভ করতেছো, ইট কুড বি লাইক ফর এক্সাম্পল আ লাইন ফলোইং রোবট. So you need to think that okay, like there are already lots of existing algorithms on line following robot, right? And the core thing for you for those kind of competition was to maximize the efficiency of that robot. So that is one part of research. And the second part of research is to identify the existing gaps. Like, for example, what a line follower robot cannot do now, and what other things you can do to solve that problem. And in terms of documentation, I will always say, like, you can document them in cloud. Like, for example, you can use Google Doc for different projects and then put them in a folder inside Google Drive. That's what I did. So I can just quickly go to my undergrad project folder using that Google Drive. So, and inside that, I will find all of the documents, all of the papers that I read for that project. So that is you can do for actually organizing your project and organizing your files. Is that answer your question, or do you want to know more about something else?
I think that satisfies my question. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
We have a question in the chat option.
Mhm.
Mohammed Shafin Mahmoud said, "Is there any software for citation except Mendeley? I found it hard to learn as I'm quite new."
Can you still see my screen, by the way?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, so what you can do for citation, there are actually a lot of different techniques, but there is a very easy technique. So go to like Google Scholar and search for a paper. Like, uh, for example, you can search for wearable sensing for gait analysis. And then if you actually click on this cite button, you will see that like the citation will be available in lot of different formats. You can also find the deep text. If you are using the LaTeX version of it, you can just copy it and paste it on your LaTeX folder. So it will automatically generate the citation for you. So you can actually, what I do, I maintain a LaTeX file where I put these citations together. And whenever I am actually referring back to that project, I go to that file and see all of the citations together in one file. So that is a technique that works for me. I think you can use this technique unless you want to use mainly, because mainly automatically captures the PDF that you are currently reading, and you can actually save that PDF inside mainly. So that is a more high level software, I would say. Yeah. The next question is, Bhaiya, how may I get the video recording? Okay. I
Uh,
think you can contact IEEE site as video. They will share the video
the
link.
video will be uploaded in the IEEE site YouTube page. You can follow the YouTube page of our uh, student branch, and there as the recording will be present. I think it answers the previous question. The slides, I think you can pause the video and get the slides because is it okay for them to get the slides, or they
Yeah, it's okay for me to share the slides. Yeah, I will share them with IEEE site student branch due. Also, that will be available in my website. So if you like, visit my website here, you will also find the slide here. So yeah, in both ways, you can actually access the
so
slides.
you get the contact information too. Someone asked about
Yeah,
the contact
yeah,
information.
and yeah. Oh, also like I forgot to mention. Yeah, feel free to contact me if you want to know more about any of the domain that I work on, and if
uh,
you want to collaborate in the future.
there is
And I
another
got another
question.
question. Yeah,
Yeah,
I can
based
I
on
can
your
read in the chat. Okay. Yeah,
uh,
based on your experience, can you shed some light on the future prospects of embedded machine learning? Interesting topic. So embedded machine learning is a field that I used to work on in my undergrad. Currently, I do not work on embedded machine learning, but most of my friends work on embedded machine learning, so I know a bit of the future prospects. So the future, I think, okay, this is my perspective, that future is going to be tiny ML. That is, like how devices are shrinking, right? Like there was a time when the computers used to capture a whole different room, like a very very big room, and now the computers is on our table. Even we are using smartwatch, we are using smart headphones, we are using smart wearables, and so on. And one very difficult challenge when you actually have this kind of very tiny smart devices, that the machine learning models are too heavy for them. So whenever you deploy a very expensive machine learning model inside them, it is very difficult to do online processing. I mean, in real time, it's very difficult to use those kind of machine learning techniques inside those devices. So that's how, if you are a person who works on embedded system, I will highly recommend you go to the website of TinyML Foundation. I will write down on the chat, TinyML Foundation. Yeah, and these are the foundation who works with this kind of modeling approaches for these tiny devices, and they are trying to improve the efficiency of these devices and those sensing what we are currently observing in recent Apple Watch or recent Google Fitbit and so on. So if you are from that domain, my highly recommendation is go to the TinyML Foundation website and see what are the existing research they are doing. Yeah. Uh, yeah, I think, yeah, you will get the slide that I presented. If there is, if is there any other question that I'm missing? Oh,
Uh,
uh, I think I actually wrote the thing in a private message. Whether I should type it for everyone.
yeah, sure.
Everyone in the meeting. Yeah, Tiny Email Foundation. The name.
So I have a question.
Mhm.
Sometimes we see professors look for good results, and sometimes they are looking for good research work. Actually, I have asked seniors, and I received two types of answers. Some seniors replied that they don't expect undergraduate students to know much about research, and sometimes they expect, so what should be a balance about how much should we know?
Uh, yeah, so I would like slightly modify the statement that you said, that yeah, they expect that you don't know everything for that domain, but they expect that you have the passing knowledge for that domain, and you have the ability to learn from that particular domain. Like for example, if you ask me if I'm interested in like for example computer architecture, or if I'm interested in computer security or not, I would say no, I am not interested in that particular domain. I don't have that much passion for that domain. So if I got a position, or if I actually ask a professor who works in computer security, and if I tell them that, hey, I really like your work, like I think you are a like very good fit for me, and I want to do research with you. So whenever that person is talking with me, because he is a professional or she is a professional from that particular domain, they will easily understand that I don't have any passion for that domain. And even I did not try to learn specific topics for that domain, that will actually help me in pursuing research for that particular domain. So I think the first step is always try to have passing knowledge for a particular domain, and try to really make sure that you want to work on that domain, and then approach someone who are working on that domain. So whenever you are approaching someone, my answer will be, they do not expect that you know everything from that particular domain, but yeah, they always expect that you have the ability to learn from that particular domain when you are working with that person.
So I would like to add to that question, for your research career, you did research on machine learning and human-computer interaction or human activity recognition. Uh,
Mhm.
how much academic background do we need? Like for people who do research out of their major, or
Yeah.
suppose someone studies in AAA, but he or she wants to do research in something else like robotics or programming or machine learning, if you say so. So what is the importance of research background, academic background? So how the
So
courses and stuff?
yeah, I will actually grind this question a bit further so that every person can be benefited from this. So at first, you need to make sure what is your end goal with this. I mean, there are like several different answers to this question based on what are the paths that you are going to pursue. Are you going to apply for a PhD position, versus are you going to apply for a master's position to an university, or you are going to apply for a visiting research position when you are an undergrad, or you are trying to apply for a technical job, or you are just trying to do research on your own. So based on all of these different paths, the answer is different. I mean, for masters and PhD, I think there are weights for multiple different sections. I mean, like for example, you could say that your CGP that has a particular weight, not a like very big weight uh, than your research, but it has a weight. Then, for example, your test course like GRE or IELTS that has a weight for your admission. Then your research has a very big weight. I mean, like for example, if we multiply your CGPA by the weight 0.0, like 0.1, I will multiply your research by like a bigger weight. Like for example, I will multiply it by a weight of 2 or 3. Like that is a very big weight for your research. And then most people do not expect that you already have like top-notch publications in your undergrad. If you have, then you like that is a like positive thing for you. But even if you don't have any publication and you are trying to apply for PhD or masters, that is also a thing. But whenever they will take your interview, they will expect that even if you don't have a publication, you know how to do research. I mean, you have a little bit exposure on writing skills, you have little bit exposure on speaking skill, like can you pitch your idea or not. So because like what documents they will have your SOP where you have written your story, why you want to do research. There you will express the ideas what you will be working on in your PhD or masters. So from that document they can give a they can actually have a sense about your writing skill. Then when they will take your interview, they will try to judge how well you can actually present your ideas to someone else. That is another thing they're going to validate. Now, if you are a person who has, like, for example, 10 papers in your undergrad, but your writing skill is very bad, so that means your 10 papers are not in very good journal or conference. So that means those 10 paper doesn't have a like very big advantage, because like for example, for those 10 papers the weight will be less. So if I multiply 10 times like 1, it becomes 10. But if someone has one paper and that is in a very good conference or journal, and if I multiply it by like a weight of like 100, so that one paper becomes 100. So that's how I think, and that's how the admission committee thinks when they are offering you admission for PhD or masters. And people who want to try for like the top schools, I mean, like for example, if you want to apply for MIT, Stanford, or like Harvard or Michigan, or if you want to apply for CMU, then my suggestion is in addition to your research, you also need to build some good like networking and communication skill that actually shows you that you can collaborate with people. So that's why I gave those tips, that try to reach out to people, try to email different people from different universities. It doesn't matter if you are in your first year or second year of your undergrad, and mostly you will figure it out that they are really busy. And if you shoot 100 emails to 100 people, you can get 1 or 2 reply, or like 5 replies. But at least you are trying hard and you are establishing that connection. So that connection actually help you in the future when you are applying for a PhD position. Like for example, if you get a like research opportunity with a professor even in your undergrad, but you don't have any paper, that professor knows you well, that will write a letter for you. So this is another actually a topic which is really far from today's topic. But I think like when you are applying for a position, recommendations letter matters the most. And most people, what they do wrong, they take the recommendation letter from someone who don't have any idea like what kind of research you do. Like mostly people take the one recommendation letter from their advisor and the two others from people with whom only they have done courses but nothing else. So then those two people cannot say much on your recommendation letter because it will not sound true, right? uh, but if you have at least some experience of working with people but you don't have like papers, they could actually tell like this person has research experience and these are his strengths and these are the weakness for which we could not publish, but I think this person has potential. These statements are really important than like saying, okay, I have like 10 different papers in like very low level conference, or like very low level journals. Yeah.
So thank you for answering the questions. If there are no more questions, then we will conclude today's session. This is your last chance from the audience. Please feel free to ask any question if you have. So I guess not. So thank you.
আমার একটা কোশ্চেন ছিল, বলা যাবে?
হ্যাঁ, sure, sure.
হ্যাঁ, অবশ্যই sure.
আমি ট্রিপলিতে থার্ড ইয়ারে পড়ি ঢাকা ইউনিভার্সিটিতে। আমার প্রশ্নটা হচ্ছে গিয়ে আমরা আপনি মাত্রই বললেন ভাইয়া যে যদি মানে রিকমেন্ডেশন লেটারটা অনেক বেশি ম্যাটার করে, কিন্তু যদি আমি আমার ফোর্থ ইয়ারে থিসিস করতে হয় বা প্রজেক্ট করতে হয়, সেক্ষেত্রে আমার একটা টিচারের সাথে হয়তো বা কানেকশন হবে আমি আশা করি, কিন্তু এই ওই একটা মাত্র টিচার ছাড়া আমার অন্য কোনো টিচারের সাথে কিভাবে কানেকশনটা হবে, কিভাবে আমি আমার সম্পর্কে ওনাকে আমি জানাতে পারবো আমি যদি ওনার সাথে কাজ না করি, বা আমি তো এমনও হয় যে আমি কোন একটা প্রজেক্টে কাজ করতে যাচ্ছি বা করবো, তাহলে সেই ক্ষেত্রে প্রজেক্টটা এতটা ভালো প্রজেক্ট না, বা যেটা টিচারের কাছে নিয়ে অ্যাপ্রোচ করা যায়, বা হয়তো বা আমি কোনো পেপার পাবলিশ করি নাই যেটা আমি কোনো টিচারের সাথে টিচার আমাকে অ্যাডভাইস করে ওই পেপারটা আমি পাবলিশ করছি, যেই কারণে উনি আমার সম্পর্কে একটু জানতে পারে আর কি। তো আমার পয়েন্টটা হচ্ছে কি, আমি অ্যাকচুয়ালি কোন একটা টিচারের সাথে কানেকশনটা কিভাবে করব, বা কিভাবে ওনাকে আমার সম্পর্কে বোঝানোর চেষ্টা করব, বা কিভাবে ওনার কাছ থেকে রিকমেন্ডেশন লেটারটা আমি ভালোভাবে পাবো যে উনি আমাকে পুরোপুরি চেনেন কিনা।
তুমি কি ফোর্থ ইয়ার নাকি থার্ড ইয়ার?
আমি থার্ড ইয়ারে।
থার্ড ইয়ার। সো তুমি যদি থার্ড ইয়ারে হও, আই উড সে লাইক ইউ হ্যাভ লাইক টনস অফ অপরচুনিটিস। সো থার্ড ইয়ারের শুরু থেকেই তুমি যেটা করতে পারো সেটা হচ্ছে যে প্রথমে যদি তুমি অলরেডি জানো যে তুমি কোন ডোমেইনে রিসার্চ করতে চাও এবং ফোর্থ ইয়ারে তোমার পটেনশিয়াল অ্যাডভাইজার কে হতে পারে, লাইক আমার লাইক তুমি কি ঢাকা ইউনিভার্সিটি ট্রিপলিতে?
জি ভাই, হ্যাঁ।
আচ্ছা, তুমি যদি ঢাকা ইউনিভার্সিটি ট্রিপলিতে হও তাহলে তুমি ঢাকা ইউনিভার্সিটি ট্রিপলির ওয়েবসাইটে যাও, দেখো সেখানে যে প্রফেসররা আছে তারা কোন ফিল্ডে রিসার্চ করতেছে, ভার্সেস তুমি অন্যান্য ইউনিভার্সিটির ওয়েবসাইটেও যাও। লাইক সেই ইউনিভার্সিটি গুলা ফার্স্ট অফ অল তুমি যদি মনে করো আই উইল স্টার্ট স্লোলি, দেন তুমি ন্যাশনাল মানে আরো অন্যান্য যে ইউনিভার্সিটি আছে, ধরো বুয়েটের ইউনিভার্সিটিতে দেখো যে তুমি যে ফিল্ডে কাজ করতে চাও কোন কোন প্রফেসর এখন সেই ফিল্ডে কাজ করতেছে। And if you want to be ambitious, তাহলে MIT এর ওয়েবসাইটে যাও and see like who are the professors working on the domain that you want to pursue your research on, and then shoot email to them যে আমি এই কোর্স করেছি এবং ওই কোর্স থেকে আমার এই আইডিয়া হয়েছে, আমি এই ডোমেইন গুলো এক্সপ্লোর করেছি অলরেডি। সো এটা খুব ইম্পর্টেন্ট যে তুমি ধরো, আমি অনেক ইমেল পাই যে আমি আপনার সাথে কাজ করতে চাই, এন্ড আমি আমি জানি না আসলে এই ইমেল গুলো রিপ্লাই কিভাবে দিব, কজ হচ্ছে আমি মানে সে তো বলেই নাই যে সে কেন কাজ করতে চায় বা সে অলরেডি কি কি এক্সপিরিয়েন্স অ্যাকোয়ার করেছে যেগুলোর উপর বেস করে আমি বুঝবো যে হ্যাঁ আমাদের রিসার্চ ইন্টারেস্টটা ইন্টারসেক্ট করে, এন্ড দেন আমি এখানে কাজ করতে পারি তার সাথে। তো সেই ক্ষেত্রে তুমি যেটা করতে পারো, তুমি ফার্স্টে নিজে শিওর হও যে তুমি কোন ফিল্ডে রিসার্চ পার্সিউ করতে চাও, অথবা এক্সপ্লোর করো প্রথমে। And when you are sure about that, try to reach for people, like email them or like try to attend their talks. Talk শেষে তাদেরকে বলো যে আমি এই ফিল্ডে কাজ করতে চাচ্ছি, যদি কোনো অপরচুনিটি থাকে they will surely like reach out to you. And even if there সেখানে যদি কোনো অপরচুনিটি নাও থাকে, তুমি তাদের থেকে কিছু ইনসাইট বা সাজেশন পেতে পারো, যে লাইক ফর এক্সাম্পল তুমি বুয়েটের এক প্রফেসরকে বললা যে আমি এই ফিল্ডে কাজ করতে চাচ্ছি এবং আমি আপনার সাথে কোলাবোরেট করতে চাই। তো সেই ক্ষেত্রে যেটা হবে, তার কাছে যদি কোনো অ্যাভেলেবল প্রজেক্ট থাকে সে হয়তো সেই প্রজেক্টে তোমাকে একটা অপরচুনিটি দিতে পারে। আরেকটা গ্রেট টিপস হচ্ছে যে তোমরা দেখবা যে ইউনিভার্সিটিতে অনেকেই ফোর্থ ইয়ার থিসিস করা শেষ এবং তারা এখন প্রিপেয়ার হচ্ছে যে এটাকে তারা কিভাবে পাবলিকেশনে কনভার্ট করবে, এবং তখন তারা যেটা চায় তাদের কিন্তু অ্যাসিস্ট্যান্টশিপ দরকার হয়। লাইক এখানে আমি যখন পিএইচডি স্টুডেন্ট আমার কিন্তু রিসার্চে অ্যাসিস্ট্যান্টশিপ দরকার হয়, এবং এই অ্যাসিস্ট্যান্টশিপ পজিশন গুলা আন্ডার গ্রেডের থেকেই নেওয়া হয়। তা আমাদের বাংলাদেশেও এই প্র্যাকটিসটা চালু করা উচিত, এবং এই প্র্যাকটিসটা যদি চালু না করা হয়, অ্যাজ আ ইউজার অফ ইট ইউ উইল এস্টাবলিশ দিস ইন ইয়োর ডিপার্টমেন্ট, যে তুমি সেই সিনিয়র ভাইদেরকে রিচ করো যে ভাই আমি যে ফিল্ডে কাজ করতে চাই এবং আপনি যে থিসিসটা করতেছেন এটা আমাদের রিসার্চ ইন্টারেস্ট হাইলি সিমিলার। সো আপনি যদি এটাকে পাবলিকেশন করতে চান বা আপনার যদি কোনো ইউজার স্টাডি করতে হয় বা আপনার যদি কোনো টেকনিক্যাল কন্ট্রিবিউশনে আমার হেল্প লাগে, আই এম ফিল ফ্রি টু ডু দ্যাট। আমি এই টাইমে আপনার সাথে কাজ করতে ইচ্ছুক, আমরা উইকলি একদিন মিট করতে পারি আমার কারেন্ট অ্যাভেলেবিলিটি অনুসারে, এবং বেসড অন দ্যাট ক্যান আই বি আ পার্ট অফ ইউর পেপার। সো তোমরা এই অপরচুনিটি গুলোকেও কাজে লাগাতে পারো। এবং আই অলওয়েজ টেল পিপল দ্যাট দের ইজ নো শেম এডিং আ পার্সন টু ইয়ার পেপার, ইটস নট reduce your contribution on that paper. So adding a co-author in the paper means that that person has some specific contribution to the paper. তো এটাও খেয়াল রাখতে হবে। তো তোমরা যখন আন্ডারগ্রেডে আছো, যদি তোমার মনে হয় যে আমি এখনো কনফিডেন্ট না যে আমি নিজে একটা রিসার্চকে লিড দিতে পারবো, বি আ co-author, be a co-author with some other project, with some other students or some other advisor. And then তুমি যখন ফোর্থ ইয়ারে উঠবা তখন তোমার নিজের একটা থিসিস হবে, try to convert that into a good research paper if you can. If you cannot, that is also super fine, that is not a big problem for you. But yeah, try to involve with people more, try to talk to them and try to share your ideas. That is how people will know whether there is any possible opportunities of collaboration or not. And then তুমি যদি সেখান থেকে কোনো collaboration opportunity পাও, then you can ask that professor that okay, I am trying to apply for a position in a university which is a PhD position or which is a master's position, and I need a recommendation letter from you. And then confident people does this following step. তারা কি বলবে, তারা প্রথমে বলবে যে আমি আপনার থেকে এই রিকমেন্ডেশন লেটারটা চাই, আমি আপনার সাথে এই কাজ করেছি, ইউ উইল সামারাইজ দেম এন্ড দেন ইউ উইল মেক হিজ এফোর্ট লেস। সো তুমি যদি প্রফেসরকে বলো যে আমাকে একটা রিকমেন্ডেশন লেটার দেন, হি কুড জাস্ট রাইট এনিথিং, ভার্সেস তুমি যদি প্রফেসরকে বলো একটা ইমেইলে সাথে একটা ডকুমেন্ট অ্যাটাচ করে দাও যে আমি আপনার সাথে যা যা কাজ করেছি তার একটা সামারাইজড ভার্সন আমি ইমেইলে অ্যাটাচ করে দিচ্ছি, এবং আমি এই পজিশনে অ্যাপ্লাই করতে চাচ্ছি যেখানে এই এক্সপার্টিস গুলো হাইলাইট করা দরকার, আপনি কি আমার এই এক্সপার্টিস গুলো হাইলাইট করতে পারেন, এবং আমি যে আপনার সাথে কাজ করছি সেখানে আমার এই এক্সপিরিয়েন্স হয়েছে, আপনি কি এই ব্যাপারগুলো আমার রিকমেন্ডেশন লেটারে হাইলাইট করতে পারেন। when you are talking in such a professional way with a professor, there is a like 95% chance that you will get a very strong recommendation letter. So I always tell people there are two kind of recommendation letter. One is a recommendation letter, like they will talk about like your coursework, they will talk about how attentive you were, and the another one is a very strong recommendation letter. So a very strong recommendation letter is very important if you are trying to reach for a PhD position or a master's position or a job in like very good companies like Google or like Facebook or like anything. Yeah, those are like very important.
থ্যাংক ইউ।
সো আমার মনে হয় এখানে হচ্ছে দাদা হচ্ছে রিসার্চ বেসড কিছু অ্যান্সার দিছে, বাট আমার মনে হয় সিয়াম এক্ষেত্রে অ্যাজ এ সিনিয়র আমি কিছু বলতে চাই এখানে অ্যাড করতে পারি, সেটা হচ্ছে লাইক এখানেও আজকে যেমন হচ্ছে আমাদের ওয়েবিনার হচ্ছে, আমাদের বিভিন্ন কম্পিটিশন গুলোর কথা দাদা বলেছে, কনফারেন্স গুলোর কথা বলেছে, সেখানে গিয়ে আসলে ওই একটু আউটগোয়িং কমিউনিকেশন অ্যাবিলিটিটা আসলে অনেক বেশি ইম্পর্টেন্ট। যদি আমি অপরিচিত মানুষের সাথে কথা বলার যে আমার আইডিয়া শেয়ার করার টেন্ডেন্সি রাখি, তাহলে হচ্ছে কাজ করার অপরচুনিটি অনেক পাওয়া যাবে। যেমন আমি হচ্ছে গতকালকের সাইড ডে এর কথা এখানে অ্যাড করতে চাই। সাইড ডে তে হচ্ছে আমরা এরকম একটা সোশ্যাল প্ল্যাটফর্ম ছিল, সেখানে আই গট টু মিট পিপল ফ্রম নিউ জার্সি অ্যান্ড Tunisia and different people from different countries doing different side projects. So these are also opportunities. I advise you to grab those opportunities and be open-minded and be open to opportunities. So if there is no more questions, then I will conclude today's session. Thank you everyone for joining. Hopefully you have learned something from this webinar that will help you in your academic or research career. Also, I encourage you to follow IEEE site Facebook page for our future activity. And I encourage the new site members who recently got renewed the membership or new to site, new to IEEE, to look for the problems around them and try to solve them using technology. If you cannot solve them, if you find something problem that can be solved, I advise you to contact us and so we can brainstorm together and try to solve those problems. As you already know, we are trying to solve the drinking water problem in some parts of the Dhaka city. The project Vishuddha is progressing, and we have promising results. We received funding from IEEE, and hopefully we'll be implementing the project in next couple of months. We will be arranging a seminar that can explain our project after Eid. Until then, I hope you good health and stay safe. Eid Mubarak. Thank you, everyone.